Welcome to First Page Fridays. I'm April Davila for Sit Right Here, and this is the day when we look at somebody's first page. We're going to read it through, and I'm going to do a live edit of it. If you would like to submit your first page, please check out the link below in the comments or in the notes section below this video. You can send in your page and I will do an edit of it for you. All right, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get to it. I'm going to move myself over to the side here, and I'm going to start at the top, read it through, and then we'll come back up to the top and start editing. I have not read this yet. It's new to me as it is new to you, so forgive me if I struggle a little bit with names or any of the details. Let's jump into it. 1776. The year sees more than a revolution of 13 colonies against an unjust king. There's also a widespread clash of cultures manifested by the continuing push of European settlers into the lands held by the native tribes. Fearing the threat of Cherokee raids supported by Tory loyalists and redcoat regulars, North Carolina has formed a special militia to march west into the mountains and eliminate the threat. 1. And again, forgive me on the names. Sisqua wiggled into her plain deerskin dress that clung to her damp skin. Well before the sun would reach the tops of the mountain sentinels to the east, peace and quiet defined the early morning. The birds had not yet awakened, and the sky had lightened only enough to promise a bright and clear day. A tendril of thin, smoky mountain fog drifted silently above the river. The gentle tune of the water falling over the rocks carried a long way through the still September air as a call to prayer and ritual morning cleansing. This time of day, the 4-year-old girl's favorite. This time of day, there's a comment there. This time of day, the 4-year-old girl's favorite teased her every sense into contented alertness. She loved to witness the village residents beginning to answer the river's call. This morning, a few were already returning from their favorite bathing pools, located anywhere from several dozen steps to more than a mile away from their lodges. Today, though, the absence of most of the men, the warriors, substantially reduced the normal activity. Some had gone over the mountains to Chota for a council meeting. All right. So I like the prologue issue, right? Like, people really like to debate prologues. I think this is exactly what a prologue should be. It would probably be on like a page right before the first page. And the important thing to know about prologues is that not everybody reads them. And I think this is exactly what you want it to be. It's giving context for the story. But if someone, and I don't understand why, if you don't read prologues, would you just put a note in the comments below and tell me why? Why would you skip a prologue? Apparently a lot of people do. But if someone did, that's okay. They could still jump into this story at chapter 1, and they would hopefully over the course they would figure out what was going on. But for those who took the time to read it, this gives kind of a larger context to the story. So it also introduces the bigger parties of the Cherokee, the Tory loyalists, the redcoat regulars, special militia from North Carolina. Okay, so, and we're getting the sense of the turmoil that is generally across this land. It's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. And if someone skips it, it's not detrimental to their understanding of the story. So I think this is actually the best example of a prologue and what a prologue can do. Okay, and then we get into chapter 1. Now, it's always a little there are my top 2 things I would say in terms of just what to consider with the story is one that assuming that you are writing for like an American audience, you don't have to dumb things down for them, but it is hard sometimes for readers when they don't know how to pronounce a name. So one of the things I really like when writers have a name that is hard to pronounce, like I'm not sure if the T is silent, Sisqua. If you could later, at some point, not too much later, but like in the first chapter or so, give us a hint of how to pronounce it. Like, does it rhyme with something, or does someone mispronounce it and she can correct them? Just like throw us a bone on how to pronounce it so that we can do it justice in our minds, and also when we go and talk about it with our book clubs and stuff. So just a note on that. The other thing is that a 4-year-old, particularly a girl, but any 4-year-old, I say girl because it's 1776, right? A girl of whether she's native or English or American is not going to have as much access to the world. A 4-year-old has dramatically less access to the world and dramatically less understanding. Now, it's not first person, which is helpful. First person 4-year-old narrator is very challenging because they just understand the world differently. They don't have a vocabulary. But even as a third person, and again, you kind of like, you get to it right here of like, the action is not happening where this little girl is. The action is happening over the mountains to Chota, where the council meeting is happening. And presumably there will be battles, and this 4-year-old girl is not. So I wonder if this 4-year-old girl is not our point of view character. Do you really want to open with them? And I'm assuming she's not, because, I mean, what you've set up with the prologue is big. It's not a quiet family story. It is fighting for rights to territories. It's battles. It's blood and gore. It is grown-up stuff. And so I wonder if opening with a 4-year-old's perspective is really like, you want to introduce us to the people that we're going to be spending time with as quickly as possible. So if this story is really more about the men who are fighting these battles, could you tell it from maybe this little girl's point of view, father's point of view? Maybe he is kissing her on the forehead as he leaves early, and he makes these observations. The birds had not yet awakened. Maybe he kisses his girl on the forehead, and as he's walking out, he passes someone who's leaving their hut, like an old woman is leaving, not a hut, sorry, she's leaving her home to go to bathe in one of the pools located. So like, this is returning from their favorite bathing pools located anywhere from several dozen steps to more than a mile away from their lodges. It's a higher third level, right? Because anyone who lives there knows that, and they wouldn't call it out. So I think deciding on point of view, who's telling the story, who the main character is, and getting us to them as quickly as possible. That said, I'm going to just work with what's on the page here. In general, the writing is really solid on this. So Siskwa wiggled into her plain deerskin dress that clung to her damp skin. I'm curious why her skin is damp. Well before the sun would reach the tops of the mountain sentinels to the east, peace and quiet. Okay, so the sun breaches the tops of mountains in the west. Oh, sorry, no, I'm thinking of sunset. No, that's east. Okay, so breaching the tops of the mountain sentinels to the east. Okay, that worked. Peace and quiet defined the early morning. Yes, the birds had not yet awakened. Now, I would be curious, have you gone out and actually, like, so I did this once. I was writing a sunrise in the Mojave Desert, and I actually went out and rented an Airbnb, and I woke up before the sunrise, and I went out and just recorded everything. And there are birds that pick up at the first hint of light. They're starting to squawk. So I wonder, especially back in this day and age, there was a lot more wildlife, and I wonder if there really was a period where the birds had not awakened. So it might be something to lean into and just investigate a little bit. The sky had lightened only enough to promise a bright and clear day. That's lovely. A tendril of thin. So here's another Smoky Mountain. This is a very Anglo description. Is this what a 4-year-old native girl, indigenous girl, are those the words she would use to describe this? Again, you're not in first person, so you're not super tied to it. But you kind of, if you're using this character as the reader's window into the world, you kind of want to describe things as this character would understand them. So I wonder if this character or anyone in her community would call it Smoky Mountain Fog. I don't know. It's possible that the English picked up that term through translation, and that, yes, maybe these mountains, even back when they were home to non-Europeans, were referred to as Smoky Mountain. I'm not super familiar with that part of the world, so I'm going to leave that for you to decide, but just consider how might this little girl think of it? Fog drifted silently above the river. The gentle tune of the water falling over rocks carried a long way through the still September air. Okay, again, we're kind of moving out of her perspective. So I sometimes, like when she wiggles into her plain deerskin dress, we're with her. We're like, her skin is damp. We're very much like talking about her experience. And then, well, the sun is starting to come up. That could be her experience. The birds had not yet awakened. The sky had lightened just enough. A tendril fog drifted silently above the river. So now I'm picturing her standing next to the river. Otherwise, she's not going to know this. The gentle tune of the water falling over the rocks carried a long way through the still September air. Now I'm starting to feel like, where is she that she wouldn't? I mean, if she's next to the river, she's not experiencing the sound carrying over the air. As a call to prayer and ritual morning cleansing. Okay. So this hints at like the prayer and ritual morning cleansing, I'm assuming, is part of this person's regular life. September, the word September has kind of the same question for me as Smoky Mountain. Would someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience with European culture consider this a September morning? Or is it like a harvest season morning? Is it a fall? Like even the word fall or autumn might be better. And granted, those are still European words, but to name something, to think in terms of months is a very, these are two clashing cultures. And that's kind of the whole point of the story. So just ask yourself, would this character, would her community say, oh, it's September? Or would they have another way of referring to it? This time of day, and this, you noticed when I read it, this tripped me up a little bit. This time of day, the four-year-old girl's favorite. This is a little awkward. I would say this time of day was the 4-year-old girl's favorite. It teased every sense into countless contented alertness, and it teased every sense into contented alertness. Okay, so what does that mean exactly? Contented alertness. So she feels she's happy but awake, happy and awake. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think that you could hint at like the fact that this is her waking up, right? This is her process of coming into consciousness. I would love to know why her skin is damp. Has she already been down for her ritual morning cleansing? If so, do 4-year-olds go by themselves down for ritual morning cleansing? Who knows? I know we're way overprotected in today's American society, but like, I wonder, do little kids go down to the river by themselves? If not, who's with her? Mom, presumably not dad because the men are off. But why is her skin damp? That's a question I would answer. She loved to witness the village residents beginning to answer the river's call. So tell us where she is. She wiggles into her deerskin dress. Does that mean she's still in her home? And then you hear she's like, this sounds like she's standing next to the river. Could you show us her leaving her home? And maybe she's not supposed to go down to the river by herself, but she just can't help herself. It's so beautiful. And maybe we get to follow her like she follows the path down to the river. Maybe on her way down, she hears the sound of the water sounding over the rocks, and she follows the sound of it to the river where she stands next to it. And then maybe she finds a place to sit on the rocks because she loved to witness the village residents beginning to answer the river's call. This morning, a few were already returning. Oh, they're returning. Okay, so they're in the camp. So then this is also a little confusing. If it's the river's call, but they're bathing in pools that are located anywhere from a dozen steps to a mile away from their lodges. And again, a mile, even like the Brits don't even use the mile. So like consider how you're describing distance. Would this little girl think in terms of miles? Maybe not. I think that the writing on this is really solid. It's lovely. The descriptions are great. You managed to tell us how old this little girl is and give us some sense of her with a sense of adventure and appreciation for beauty. I think what this most needs is grounding in seeing. Where is this little girl? I mean, literally, like, where are her feet? Where is she sitting? Is she having all of these reflections in her home? Is she by the river? If she's either of those, how is she witnessing residents who are kind of, they go willy-nilly to wherever the pools happen to be? I would just simplify a little bit. Even if it's not perfectly accurate, you could have, okay, so I don't know, you want to be respectful of accurate history, especially in historical fiction. But instead of saying like they were already returning from their favorite bathing pools, maybe have her sit down by the river and watch as people come down to do their morning ritual cleansing. And maybe she doesn't see everyone from her community come down, because some of them will go off to other bathing pools, and she knows that. But have us be with her as she witnesses what she witnesses, whatever it is. I hope that makes sense. Like, let us see through her eyes. Today, though, the absence of and then this is really good. So when she sees the women come down, and we could reflect, or she could reflect, we could learn through her reflections that normally men would also join, but today they weren't here. The absence of the warriors substantially reduced the normal activity. Some had gone over the mountains, and I would say who. So today, though, the only men were the old and the very young. The warriors had gone over the mountain to Chota for a council meeting. So it's not, so the absence of most of the men, and then the word some, I think you could bring a little specificity in, particularly if you picture her sitting on a rock by the river, watching people come down to do their morning cleansing ritual, and say like, oh, and there's old man so-and-so. He's the only man today, because any man who is able to walk, maybe he can't, I don't know, maybe he doesn't walk or doesn't walk well, had gone over the mountain to Chota for a council meeting. So in general, I think the writing on this is really solid. It's beautiful. I think we get a good sense of what's happening. The specific question isn't posed so much, but we do this prologue along with most of the warriors have gone to this other meeting, hints at the fact that like something big is happening. I am definitely intrigued. I would definitely keep reading this, because I love a story that takes us into another perspective of a story that we kind of feel like we know, right? Like 1776 from the American perspective is a story I feel like I know pretty well, thanks Hamilton, but I don't know this side of the story. And I would be very intrigued to keep reading. And again, just to summarize, I think the one thing that could help really ground it is to give us some more details of where give us this particular morning, right? Follow this little girl wherever she is. Tell us where she is. Let us feel like the dirt under her feet, or maybe she's, her leather moccasins. I don't know if it's September, so maybe it's cooler. I mean, again, I'm a West Coast girl, so I'm a little ignorant on maybe what is the weather on a September morning. It's probably pretty chilly. I don't know, you could get a few more of those details in. But in general, this is a lovely first page. I would definitely keep reading. For those of you watching, if you would like to send in your first page to get some feedback on it, please feel free to click on the link below in the show notes and send me your page, and maybe next time we'll look at yours. Happy writing, everybody. See you next time.